Good morning. Thanks for coming to this session. My name is Gara Villalba. I am an associate professor in the Department of Chemical, Biological, and Environmental Engineering of the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And I am also a researcher at the Institute of Environmental Science of Technology, also at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here today. I think what brings us all here today is the fact that we're very much aware of the priority of providing urban regions with a much more sustainable way of producing our food. And we're all up to this exciting challenge and have great innovative ideas to move in that direction. One of the main reasons for this is more than 50% of the population is in cities, and 80% of the food that is produced globally goes to cities. And even though most of the food goes to cities, all this food is traveling on the average of over 2,000 kilometers for US cities and somewhat less than that for European cities. And what we're seeing is that not only do we need to reduce all this transportation, which obviously results in fuel use and consequently greenhouse gas emissions, but there are also other factors as well, is the use of fertilizers. So phosphorus, many studies have pointed out towards the fact that we're depleting our phosphorus very fast pace. Some studies point to less than 100 years worth of phosphorus the way we're using it right now, the rate of consumption and extraction. And then nitrogen, even though that's renewable, we have plenty of nitrogen in the air for sure. Here, the problem is more that in order for us to fix the nitrogen, we use very highly energy-intensive ways of doing that. We use a lot of energy to produce ammonia, and also the resource for that is natural gas, yet another fossil, and something that we want to start moving away from. So for all of these reasons, food production in cities is something that we need to move towards, and it also gives us opportunity for being more optimal in the way we use resources in cities. So where I work, we're carrying out several projects in this direction. We have an ERC consolidator project, which looks at how green infrastructures, especially urban agriculture, how it can play a role in optimizing these resources in terms of recovering nutrients from our wastewater, from our solid waste, and optimizing these resources so that we have a more cyclical use in our cities of these nutrients, and also how it affects our air quality and urban atmosphere in general. So this is one of the things that we're moving towards, and we have some great speakers here with us today who will explain to us other innovations in this direction. We have James Macdonald, who is a PhD candidate at the UPC, that's the Polytechnical University here in Catalonia. He's also a business developer in vertical farming, and also, if you want to just go ahead, and that way they start looking at your face while I'm talking about you. They see who you are. Thanks, James. Yes, thank you. And also, he's had many years' experience in the solar energy business. And then we also have Mara Balestrini. You're going to come on up, please. Thank you. She is CEO of innovative consultancy called Ideas for Change, and she will be talking to us about how we can map the food environments of peoples in cities so that we can get a better idea of people's needs, diets, and how that affects their eating habits. And that'll be great towards your.
Is it all here?
Yeah, go ahead. And that is very important so that we can make it can have an incidence on local food production policies. And we have Karndee. She will be talking to us from a different case study all the way from Bangkok. She is an innovation strategy advisor of FutureTales Labs, and she will be talking to us about experiences of implementing green infrastructure and urban agriculture in Bangkok, and how that affects the ecosystem services in that area. So I hope that this is all is going to fill us with more ideas and more knowledge about what's going on out there, and really promote this local food production in all its different levels and creativity. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. James, did you want to go ahead and start?
Okay, does this work? Yes, it does. Great. Bon día a tothom y tota dona, a todas y todos, muy buenos días. Voy a dar este discurso en inglés para que le llegue a la mayoría de los presentes. So my name is James. I'm here in Barcelona. I've been here for 3 years now. I'm a New Yorker originally, and I do some work with the Belgian group Urban Crop Solutions. So looking at my first slide here, we see on the left humans' intervention on the landscape of Earth. It looks a lot different than it did many thousands of years ago. And on the right, we see a gentleman holding up a lettuce inside a completely closed vertical farm with no sunshine, running on LED lights and hydroponics. So I'm going to speak about vertical farming, but I'm also going to speak about its place within the large, sometimes intimidating sphere of agriculture. So where did we start? 50 years ago, Richard Nixon decides the war on drugs, United States, mostly California. And what happens? The hippies up there are thinking, oh my God, we can't have our marijuana growing outside anymore. What do? Like, maybe we grow it under a light bulb. I say, well, okay, there we go. So they started growing marijuana indoors 50 years ago with light bulbs, and sometimes powered by photovoltaics. So they actually gave a great boost to the photovoltaics industry and a great boost to hydroponics. So during the following decades, we see the American government going after marijuana, and the hippies a few steps ahead, indoors, secretly growing plants with lights and hydroponics. And a large company, General Hydroponics, came out of this. And they really got sophisticated and started getting higher yields and better lighting technology. We've got NASA, and they say, all right, we want to grow plants in space. And so who are the smartest guys in America doing this? Well, it's the hippies in California that the federal government hates. Well, let's collaborate with them. Anyway. Interesting story. We don't have time to go too far deep into it, but I just want to throw it out there. So fast forward to the 2010s. Now we've got LEDs on the scene. Major game changer. All of a sudden, lighting is getting cheaper. It's getting a lot more efficient. It's not so hot, so you can grow more plants inside. A pretty landmark book, 2011, Dixon de Pommier, an American guy, wrote The Vertical Farm. It was kind of a visionary book, not super technical. And Dr. Kozai in Japan came out with a pretty thick, important, highly technical book called Plant Factory a few years later. And we started getting into the point where we could grow lettuce and herbs with lights and no sun instead of very expensive cash crop marijuana. So where are we now? For some of you may be very familiar with this already. We're talking about systems that have no sun. There's no soil. It's strictly delivered with water and nutrients and no contamination. It's a clean room protocol. So that we can avoid using biocides, insecticides, fungicides, etc. What latitude? Are you 70 degrees above the equator, or are you on the equator? What time of day? Is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Is it winter? Is it raining outside? It doesn't matter. This is completely controlled. So this is what was also attractive to NASA. Okay, that's cool. But do we really need this, right? And so we can still grow crops outdoors. But we're starting to see some phenomena with climate change that are a little disturbing. This is a photo in the United States with the corn where it was at in 2018, and then due to some heavy flooding in 2019, it didn't grow. And that's a huge investment and a huge food security issue. So we have seasonal issues, and we have single-day events. For example, Hurricane Maria, what happened with Puerto Rico a few years ago, in a single day, overnight, it wiped out 80% of the agriculture. So what else is with vertical farming? We're talking about a lot of electricity, and that is going down as leads get more efficient. But still, it cannot be ignored that these things do require electricity and structural materials. Metals, plastics, if they can be recycled, better. Recyclable, better. Maybe even in the future, bio-based. We're looking into that. So vertical farming is using less water, less fertilizer, less food miles, less land, and less time, because the lights are left on for 18 hours a day, and we're talking about maturity in 28 days for lettuce, as opposed to maybe 2 months in the field. A lot of times, some industry colleagues talk about how many times vertical farming is compared to regular agriculture. And you hear 100 times, 350 times. And these numbers are all over the place, and they kind of annoy me. So that's kind of like saying, oh, I've heard about these things called apartment buildings, and they can house 30 times or 200 times more. But are you talking about the apartment building on the left or the apartment building on the right? It's the same thing with a vertical farm. We've got a vertical farm with 4 layers. We've got a vertical farm with 30 layers. So we're talking about the z-axis. This does not happen in regular agriculture, but now in vertical farming it does. And the t-axis, right? Time. Well, the t-axis is not really a term, but it's the 4th dimension. It has to be considered. And then we come up with a metric that matters. Kilograms per square meter of earth per year. So on the upper left, you see this wonderful rendering of a farm scraper. And there's still renderings. Nobody's really building them yet. In reality, we're probably looking at ugly industrial buildings in the urban periphery, preferably covered with solar panels, easy access for logistics. Okay, so the company I work with in Belgium, Urban Crop Solutions, right now we're still focusing on leafy greens, medicinal herbs, culinary herbs, but we're starting to dabble in some peppers, some berries, some tomatoes. That's where we're at today. So when you look at agriculture, though, we're kind of on the bottom still. We're getting into those different colors, a lot of different micronutrients, but on the top, these are the big land consumers, especially protein and fat, and the carbs sometimes to feed the animals. So controlled environment agriculture vegetables are actually the lowest calorie density of all foods, but that's not what we're going for. We're going for the micronutrients. Because macronutrients keep you alive. If you eat too many of them, you get obese, but the micronutrients, beyond the list of the vitamin A, B, C, D, E, K, and all the minerals out there, there are a lot of phytochemicals that are really beneficial for humans and may make us live to 142 years old if we really want to do that. So, but to feed humans, we need good food, but to feed the plants that feed the humans, we also need this nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And as was mentioned earlier, these are non-renewable resources. Nitrogen, we're burning through natural gas to extract this from the air. Phosphorus, these are just some examples. Togo, Utah, around the world, we're mining and mining and mining. And like we said, we're going to run out eventually. We like the hashtag circular economy. It's very much a buzzword nowadays. Mining the sewage waste stream sounds kind of disgusting, but we think we have to really rethink what the word disgusting means moving forward, because we're talking about a gold mine of minerals such as what's going on here. We've got Sweden and Germany. This just came out last year. They're going to start mining phosphorus from sludge and being able to use that as fertilizer, whether it's in vertical farms or in conventional agriculture. It's a useful mineral. So agriculture, a lot of times my vertical farming colleagues say agriculture uses 70% of the water and vertical farming uses so much less. Yes, we use a lot less, but the 70% of the water is probably not going mostly towards lettuce. A lot of that is going towards some of the bigger crops, cotton, corn, sugar, fuel, material, feed. Agriculture is enormous in scope. It's hard to comprehend the vastness of it. And we even got forestry on the side that provides timber. So we're looking at protein, fat, carbs. Those are our macronutrients. And what we're specializing in today, micronutrients. We are doing tests on wheat. Some people are trying to do tests on rice to grow them in vertical farms. Is this going to be ready for 2020, 2021, 2022? No, not yet. Maybe 2030, but maybe before, I don't know. But it's a challenge to grow wheat, but it can be done. So the Earth's surface, of the 100 million square kilometers that we have that are habitable, that aren't desert or polar regions, half of it is agriculture. But of that, most of it is devoted to either livestock or the grains that feed livestock. So it's just way disproportionate the amount of land that this heavy fat and protein that we take in animal protein is really taking a toll on the earth. So what's really driving this deforestation? Beef has a huge part in the equation. And what's happening in Brazil, a lot of those fires and deforestation are linked to beef and soy to feed beef. And a lot of this is really coming up in the mainstream media. People are talking about taxing meat. It's like, what is that? Like taxing cigarettes sounded absurd 50 years ago. People are like, I love these. They're so smooth and delicious. But like, no, they're bad for you. And it's like, what? No. Now cigarette tax is accepted. But for example, going back to Brazil, we're here in Western Europe, or my colleagues in North America, we're concerned about this Amazon-derived beef. But in the end of the day, a lot of it is not even going to our country. So it's another variable we have to consider. So deforestation is not happening all over the place. And some people may think that it's happening here, but actually in Western Europe and North America, we're actually experiencing the opposite. We're after getting a more net reforestation. The 3 main tropical areas, Amazonia, Congo, and Indonesia, are the ones that are really suffering with deforestation. So where do you get your protein? We've got plant-based protein. There's another very, very interesting new development called cultured meat. And I was up in Holland last month at the International Scientific Conference on Cultured Meat. Check it out. We don't have time to get too far into it. There's a group in New York City called New Harvest that are getting together money and funding this, because as much as we'd like everyone to be vegetarian, a lot of people like meat, and they like hamburgers, they like nuggets and stuff like this. So developing the science, which right now is not very funded by governments, is important, I think, thinking in the future, thinking 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line. Biodiversity loss, we're in the 6th extinction. This has been established. We're losing species at over 1,000 times, whether it's the European Commission, Yale University. It's been established that species are disappearing. And we really have to transform agriculture on many different fronts. It's not just vertical farming. Vertical farming has a specific niche. Cultured meat has a specific niche. Transforming what our agricultural lands look like, agroforestry, agroecology, and other things that we should definitely look into. Agrovoltaics, I come from the solar industry. I worked 12 years as a project engineer developing big solar power plants, North America, South America, and Europe. And now we're starting to see them with crops underneath. Super interesting and super, super useful. Rewilding, yeah, this is kind of giving 100% back to nature. And if those of you who are mayors or city managers or city planners, if you're not ready to start bringing bison into the peri-urban area, you can start with flowers. At least that's a contribution towards biodiversity increase. So what is the ideal ecological use of land? A lot of these things. Biodiversity, carbon sink, harvesting food and energy. And what can you really do to slow down climate change and biodiversity loss? A bunch of these things: meat, fossil fuel divestment, indoor and ecological agriculture investment, audit your menus. If you're running a city, if you're running hospitals, schools, prisons, all these things, and there's meat on the menu, rethink it. And even the grains on the menu, where are they coming from? Really fine-tune and focus and see where the food is coming from. Waste stream mining, like we spoke of, and the agrivoltaics, agroforestry, as well as urban photovoltaics, facades, roofs, etc. So again, follow me at Ecofuturista, or Ecofuturista in English, Instagram, or James at ecofuturista.com. Check it out. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Did you want to go next? Yes, please.
Thanks, James.
So Karndee is next.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. Thanks, James, once again, to lay out the biodiversities and the impact of climate change. I'm waiting for my slides to go up, which is not this one. Different one, please. Is it yours? You want to switch to yours? Hang on, I'm working on it. Well, you mentioned biodiversity is one of the, the central idea that I'm going to present as well. I'm going to take you to the other side of the world, to Bangkok. I'm Karndee Leopairote from FutureTales Lab, MQDC. We are one of the largest developer in Thailand, and these are what we do, and we're totally proud of. Let's take a look Bangkok by the numbers. How many of you have been in Bangkok before? Quite a number of them. Crazy, fun cities. You can find food 24 hours a day, no problem with that. Number one tourist destination, but to be fair, the most congested cities as well. Look at the population we have. Registered population is 8.3 million, but the actual one is more by double. It's 13 or even more. But what I want you to pay attention, however, is the way we use the land as a green space. We have only, by statistics, only 6.7 green area square meter per capita, which is lower than the WHO average. But let's see what we can do once we know that we have 24.5% of the whole total land still empty and still underutilized. This is the data that we have from GIS. When I go back to looking at the green space and the actual agriculture area in Bangkok. Well, the number of 18% of all the total lands in Bangkok, to me, seems impressive. But if you take a look at the east side of the cities and also to the south, those areas are, in the highest risk of the rise of the sea levels, and also the flood. So we take this statistic, we go into deep dive into the future scenarios that might become. But I want to show you something that might, kind of strike us hard. Back then in 2011, like just 8 years ago, we have the flood, a huge flood. I think this is the most severe in our history. And that come to realizations that from Thailand, the kitchen of the world, Bangkok, what we believe that we have so many spaces for agriculture to feed the cities. But the reality check, if that happens, that if we cannot import any food or any agricultural products, any vegetable to Bangkok at all, we can survive less than a day. So that struck us hard. How are we going to build this city to be more food, increase their food securities and become more self-sustained in our cities as well. Bangkok growing very fast, and a lot of agriculture area has been disappear year by year, and that's something that we need to worry about and think about it. So we do some simulations, more like a linear simulation on the cities. If we take all the empty land, underutilized land as of now, 24% out of it, put into the garden, put into the rooftop space, Bangkok could be very different from today. We talk about the green area, which is higher than anywhere in the world, and we talk about the possibility that Bangkok could be the carbon neutral even. So that's something that we can see that we can improve even more if we get all the behavior, shift all the behavior and see the importance that we can lead the city to the different way. Let me tell you the story. This is one that I really like. We started paying attention on the rooftop gardening and build stuff into the current infrastructure, which is not well planned that we have. This is one of the example that is quite a great stories that we put up as a rooftop farm in the Laxi district office, which is a government agency, which is a government office. The story is quite nice. It's actually started out by the janitor who work in the buildings, who don't have enough money, for the food and because the Bangkok expense is really high. So he started by putting up the rooftop on the government office. Nice enough that the guy right in on the right-hand side, the director of that office say, hey, this is a good idea. Why don't you do it? Why don't we do it in the larger scales? So in this case, we can have, we can just go up there for lunch and bring down some vegetable and have a nice meal, fresh and clean. And at the same time, the senator, the staff of the government office can have the extra income out of that. So I think it's not just about plant, but it's all about the economic, the ecosystem altogether that need to work hand in hand. Another nice story is that it's more like a weak signal trend. It's not a wild space trend at the moment. The millennials, the youngsters, from IB, get so sick and tired of the really stressful job. They started out doing the community city garden. It's like when we have co-working space, but now we have co-gardening space coming up. Not many though, but it's starting. But that's something I see the sign that we do see the importance of the green space and how we feed ourselves. This is another place that we're really proud, close to our heart. Our company, this is our sister research lab on sustainability and innovations. We really pay attention on bringing the nature close to you, as well as push us as citizens back close to the nature. By the research, we see that about 90% of our daily life, we stay in enclosed buildings, either in our residence, in our home, condominium, offices, shopping mall. So we really put a lot of effort into it, try to study, what type of plants that could grow effectively indoor. So we do have this lab right up in Bangkok. I would like to invite you to join. And all the plants here, different plants have their functions. So we have to look right into the details. What will be good in the daytime? What will be good in the nighttime? Because it's not, not one size fits all. That all the green space on the fake plastic would do work. But it's a lot of details in there. we are fortunate enough because Thailand is, there are quite, variety of plants and species and so many things that we can choose from. Now we go into the next step, that how we're going to grow them in the enclosed space and make sure that when we live in this enclosed space, we can enjoy the nature as well. I would like to bring you to another project that we also really proud of. We call Forestiers. Look at the top, it might look like another mixed-use project. But if you look closely, you will see that we have green area much more than the business area or commercial area. So these are the mixed-use projects. Let me tell you a beauty about it. We like to me, 180 acres to the east of Bangkok, we would like to build a city within the cities. But the city would not be the same because we're going to bring the nature close to you. We really pay attention to biodiversity or urbanizations. I want to make sure that we don't look too crazy to show you this. We are the property developers. We just don't tear down the trees and build buildings. We did research. We have our researchers camps out in that area for 3 months. We take a look at what kind of species, birds, trees, snakes, snails. We found out that we have about 40 species of plants there, and also more than 100 species of animals in that area before our project comes in. And we would like to maintain it. Better yet, we would like to increase it when our project finished. This is our dream. This is our whole effort, and heart and soul is there. We really look into the ecosystem in that area, which is beautiful. We never know. I'm a Bangkok by born. I don't really get close to the nature all that much, unless we go to the park. But this project is something that we would like to bring the nature close to you, and also at the same time, we're going to push you back into the nature. So we start planting trees. You might kind of wondering in your head right now, where do you get those trees, and how are we going to build the forest? Let me repeat once again, we are building the forest in the city. We are not building park. I think there are the huge difference between the forest and park. So we have not just plantings there, we need to have the innovative models from financial setting into the community engagement. For instance, for the trees, we take out the existing tree and try to groom them and put them back next year, 3 years from now. At the same time, we have the campaign, Save the Trees. If we have any other project, the road or the highway construction going on, and we know that there's a big tree out there, we're gonna go save them, keep them survive, and put it back here. And at the same time, we built the new trees right here as well. So we hope that this is going to be the project that we tried out, truly proud of. They're going to make the change of the face of the property developer in the future. We put into intention of the physical activities, and so build the community around the area as well. So for my last note, we will talk about the urban food or the urban agriculture, or how we feed the cities. What we normally see, when we feed the city, we don't just feed food. We should feed something much larger, the core necessity. We should feed the well-being. So that's why we talked about not just only putting plants in our project. We need to be innovative enough in terms of financial models, make it up and running, and make sure this project sustains. And also understand right into the citizen of this particular area. Bangkok still have high-income people, low-income people, and we still have the inequality gap right there, which is the truth. Our project not just to build the nature into you, but also build mechanism that in these different income stratas will be able to live together, and also we're going to feed the well-being of all citizens. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karndee. Yes, Mara, thank you.
Hi. So my colleague here just talked about the importance of having community involved in creating together better futures for our food systems. So what I want to share with you today is a slightly different project. It's called Food Mapping, and it was aimed at investigating how citizens can participate in mapping food environments so that the resulting data can be used to inform food policies at the local level. We did this with a really amazing team of partners. In particular, this project was locally led by the Plan Estratégico Metropolitano de Barcelona, the mobile work capital, with support of AMB, my company, Ideas for Change, the Red Cross, and Mundo Digital, which is a technology provider. So the opportunity, where does this start? Well, the places where we buy food influence what we eat. This means that the places where we live and the food that is available in these places might end up having an impact on our health. And in food environments research, what we know is that if we are able to map the foods that are available in a given area, we can have a better understanding of community health factors in the future. Food mapping is the first phase of a project currently led by the Plan Estratégico Metropolitano de Barcelona, which stands for the Strategic Metropolitan Plan of Barcelona, that is called Big Diet, and it looks at how we may create data with participation of citizens that can be further used for the implementation of quality of life indicators in the metropolitan city. Now, the key question is, how are we auditing? How are we mapping our food landscapes? The way this is traditionally done, or one of the ways in which this is traditionally done, is that a researcher will go to a given area, will select a number of streets, and will be mapping shop by shop the type of shop where food is available, the type of food that is available, the quality of this food, the price, the availability, et cetera, et cetera. The question that food mapping tries to tackle is, why can't citizens do this? Citizens are carrying mobile phones with them, and they're shopping for food mostly every day. So what about collaborating with citizens, following a citizen science approach, so that we can piggyback on the local knowledge of people and bring them on board so that we can map landscapes together and make sense of what is needed in the local environment, what are the issues that they're facing, and bringing all this information together to inform better local policies. So this is what we did. Obviously, what we want to understand here is the relationship between the food supply that is available in different neighborhoods and how this links with the eating habits of people through the consumption decisions that they make. Is this clear? Because once we understand this, it's much easier to follow into the next phases of the presentation. So we created a participatory approach to doing this together with citizens, and this was deployed in a number of phases. The first phase was about identifying areas in the metropolitan area of Barcelona where such protocol could be deployed in a way that we could have different results and make the methodology more robust. This meant going to local organizations, identifying different communities, relevant actors in the community that could activate participation of citizens. Also, because we knew that in a pilot scenario we were not going to have enough critical mass of users, we decided to focus on a short selection of products that were going to be mapped by each community. These products had to be the same in each neighborhood so that we could compare availability, price, etc. To do this, by adding an engagement element, we decided to focus on the ingredients that are needed to cook a recipe of lentil stew. And now I'm going to explain that forward. Then we organized an engagement campaign and we created a mobile app to allow people to collect this data. And then we deployed the community intervention in the three different neighborhoods. And we mapped their food environments, and then we analyzed their results together with people. So these are the three areas that we selected to deploy our actions: San Ildefonso in Cornellà, the neighborhood of Gracia in the center of Barcelona, and Fondo. As you can see here, these are three very, very different communities with very different compositions in terms of the demographics, but also with very different disposable income per family. As I said before, to make sure that we could compare the results across neighborhoods, we selected the ingredients according to a recipe, a very famous recipe that everybody eats, which is a lentil stew. Why a lentil stew? Well, lentils are really good for our health and for the environment. Producing them is good. And the lentil stew comprises different types of foods and ingredients that are typically assessed when you map food environment. Fresh produce like onions, like carrots, spices, different meats, lentils, etc. So this gave us a variety of products and an excuse for people to go and buy the food using the app. We developed this mobile app, which is called Food Mapping, and it's available for Android and iOS. And this app allows you to select, you have the recipe in there, it allows you to select the ingredients. It doesn't collect any personal data, so it's in order for us to not incur into privacy issues. It geolocates you, and it tracks the walking distances, how many steps you do, the inclination of the terrain, so that we can see whether the food shops are far away from your house, the inclination of the terrain, and so on, duration of the routes, type of establishment that you go to, the food that you buy, the type of product, the label, etc., and the price, etc. So we worked with diverse communities in the three neighborhoods, and in some cases, trained facilitators helped people make sense of the app to ensure that this was the technology was not a barrier for participation. Together, we mapped the environment with people in the three different areas that I said before. Also, when people came back with the produce, just to make it clear, people go out in their neighborhoods and buy the ingredients for the lentil stew. They come back to a community center with all the ingredients, and we're going to cook together a lentils stew. This means that the community starts fostering new relationships between them. People get to know each other. People get to learn how to cook a healthy recipe. And while we are waiting, it takes a while to cook a lentil stew. While we are waiting, we deploy a co-creation workshop. In this workshop, we take the opportunity to get people to, again, use physical maps to better map the typical shops that they visit, to discuss issues like, for example, foods that they cannot access in their neighborhoods, issues that they have to discuss among them. And we use this data to augment the data set that is collected through the technology. And then the intervention ends with us all together sharing the lentil stew and further discussing tricks to make food at home, and recipes, and so on. So what are the results that a pilot of this kind could render? Here, for example, we can see the average money spent in the same recipe by different people in the neighborhoods. You can see that in San Ildefonso, people spent an average of €4 to cook this recipe. In Fondo, €3.80, and in Gracia, €8.40. These numbers correlate to the disposable family income that I showed you before. I want to clarify, it's not only that food might be more expensive in some areas than others, but the groups of people that live there make different food decisions. They shop at different places and different quality products. And this has an impact on the money that they spend, but also the type of food they eat. We can also go into a more granular understanding of the food decisions, seeing, for example, differences in prices per product and per place. Being able to observe, for example, the difference between buying in a local market in terms of price at a supermarket or at a specialized store. We can also see the routes that people take in order to buy in their neighborhoods will give us an understanding of where people localize their consumption and how much they walk to do this in their neighborhoods. So what are the conclusions? We believe that it is super important and valuable that if we can bring citizens on board in the mapping of their food environments, because we know that this data is super valuable when it comes to informing local food policies. For example, if you realize that there's no access to fresh food in a neighborhood, you might realize that you need to create new alternatives for people to eat fresh food, because this is going to be very important for their health. Also, working with co-creation methodologies is known to encourage the adoption of more of these policies because people feel part of having made them. The development of this new methodology can allow us to audit the food environment, taking people on board and using this data to create policy with people on board. And co-creation and citizen science can contribute a lot to improving and innovating with our urban systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you.
Love it.
Great.
I was out of time.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Well, what I'm hoping will come out of all of this is that with your type of work, Mara, we identify areas that are lacking fresh produce, and then we come in with James, and he shows us how to grow the micro and the macronutrient crops right in the city, and then we're able to enjoy biodiversity and more in the peri-urban area. So I think we got it all covered here. Thank you so much. The way we have this set up is we have about 15 minutes, which we're supposed to share with a little bit of discussion here, and also with some questions from the audience. So just because it might be more food for thought in terms of your questions, I would like to just start off with one question here, and then we'll turn it over and have you all join in with questions. So one question I had was, so being as it is close to Christmas, if you sort of had a Christmas list for city officials and policymakers at the city level, what are some of the limitations that you have seen with your work in terms of promoting urban agriculture that you think cities now being more empowered and having more citizens join in with science and participation, what could cities really do to promote the, more sustainable urban systems for food production? I don't know. James, would you like to start, since you were the last one to speak now?
So I guess it depends on the layout of the city, right? I mean, no two cities are alike. You have some cities that are hyper dense and ancient, like when you're around the Mediterranean region here, Barcelona, up in Marseille, and in Genoa, around the Mediterranean basin, the African cities in the north of Algeria, Morocco, et cetera, they're super old and super dense, and there's not a lot of space to grow. Then when you get out of the city, sometimes you have a wall, and then you start the agriculture there. So I guess it's about identifying lands and trying to make them biologically biodiverse as well as productive, if we're talking about outdoor agriculture. For indoor agriculture, we're looking at this stage of the game, it's more effective in further away from the equator. You know, further up in Scandinavia is a great market. Desert areas, Dubai is a great market. Around the Mediterranean and Central Southern Europe, sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes you can buy a container, you can grow lettuce inside the container, and if you're paying cheap electricity, you can compete with market prices, but you can also grow that outside sometimes. So for cities, yeah, I'd say find out if indoor agriculture is appropriate and try to take advantage of the outdoor space that you have.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mara, did you want to add?
Yes, I would say go back to the communities and talk to people. One of the key findings of the food mapping project, which I was not able to develop while I was there because I realized that I ran out of time, is that people have a very clear understanding of what they're missing in terms of food in their food environments. And talking to them, you can observe patterns across neighborhoods. For example, in Fondo, there was huge concern about the amount of waste that is created when you buy at supermarkets. And the reason why people bought more in bulk in Gracia is because they didn't want to create waste, and they had the spare income to afford these products, not going to the supermarket. So it's the same concern that manifests in different ways for two very different collectives. So bringing people on board is incredibly valuable because it may be able to inform innovation in food policies that are relevant and solve people's needs.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I think that moving away from moving towards bulk, moving away from all this packaging. I mean, I think in general there's a huge consensus about this, and there's got to be innovative ways of figuring it out that this needs to happen in terms of reducing waste.
And needs to be affordable for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would put into three lenses together to put the urban food, the food, the system, agriculture right into the cities. Number one is the mindset. The way that we see the green areas, we should call it green is a new gold this day. And our research says nature is now become luxury product rather than those brand names that we're carrying. So mindset, mentality of the citizen will have to shift. Second, reality check. If we want to do the urban agriculture, financially, economically, it's still not feasible. The land in Bangkok is really the high price, and you still have horizontal agriculture. It's not going to work. People are going to call you crazy, which is what we've been called all along the time. But we handle that. But economical, financially, we have to be feasible. In that sense, we're talking about it's a matter of how we put a tax incentive, or we'll try to incentivize the citizen to put the green area right into the corridors, to the space, and that would help. And also by the technology of the vertical agriculture, we do have that. But to be honest, by the unit, it's still more expensive. So that's the second lens of financially, the feasibility of the finance and economic. The third one, I look into the operation and supply chain point of view, where we looked at if we're going to grow vegetable in the cities, and the space area in each individual is small. But Bangkok people are we are foodies people. You have meals in restaurants, it's much cheaper than cook in our home. So in that sense, the majority of the supply chain requirements require a large amount of agriculture product into their restaurant. But if it can chop down and do something like encourage more, economically feasible, and try to manage a supply chain that could be more feasible to build, to deliver at a small amount, to a home front, and also in create the areas that would be able to deliver the large amount to the industry or the business. I think that would be awesome. So once again, three lenses that I'm looking at: the individual, the financial aspect, and also the supply chain and operations. That's a wish list to the cities that I would like to do. Promote them and also pull down the friction and the barriers that can help citizens engage into these activities.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I think it's really important to point out the huge infrastructure investments that a lot of these solutions require. At first, it's like you're saying, not feasible. People think we're crazy. But I think that is really our calling here to cities being empowered to do all of this, is that we really need to think long-term.
Right.
When you think long-term, when you think about all the fuel and all the environmental impacts associated to all this import of food, there's one point where, the balance is going to be that it's going to be a lot costly effective. It's going to be inside the cities and urban areas, when we start putting a cost to all the environmental freebies that we've been getting so far. Okay, well, I'd like to open it up to the audience. I think we have people maybe going around with a microphone to see if, yeah. Okay, so I'm kind of blinded by the lights. So please kind of wave. Do we have somebody with a question? Yes, please. If you could maybe introduce yourself before you ask the question, that would be fantastic.
Yes, hello, I'm Laura and I'm a student of Management of Smart and Sustainable Cities. And I wanted to ask, we've been talking a lot about the citizen themselves and not so much about the enterprises. And my question goes to Mara. Have you considered taking the information of enterprises, of the markets, of the food chains, taking this information into your app? Because I think this is really where we need to get the data from the enterprises and not only from the citizens. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
I think this is a really good question. In fact, working with data, which is what we do at Ideas for Change, we know that most of the knowledge comes when you actually combine different data sets. And in this case, if in the back end of food mapping we could incorporate supply chain data, for example, then we would have a vast amount of data to have a huge understanding of not only what people consume locally, how, where, how much they pay for, but also where that food comes from, for example. But unfortunately, for the time being, we have not been able to engage with the private sector to have access to that data. But I think that, for example, joining a quadruple helix approach to this problem would be a way to convince the private sector to open up their data so that we can do this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? No? Yes, there in the back.
Hi, my name is Alberto. I'm a journalist. My question goes to James. Vertical farms show great promise in terms of resilience towards new urbanism, bigger cities, denser cities. But right now, agriculture is mostly managed by small farmers who also own the land they till. Will vertical farms upset the current balance and create even larger inequalities?
Create what?
Will vertical farming, which will no longer be managed by the same people who right now own the land they till, would upset the balance in rural areas and even entire economies?
Okay, interesting question. Hello? Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's also on a country-by-country basis. There are certain places in the world where, my country included, where we have mega super farms that are run by large companies. Then there are other parts of the world where you have tiny plots owned by individual families. Whether or not big companies buy vertical farms or small companies decide to either buy one themselves. I mean, the smallest unit of a vertical farm typically nowadays is the 40-foot shipping container, the same containers that you see at the port. Those can be bought by an individual, an entrepreneur, can get a bank loan and can operate something like that in a small city and sell the produce. A farmer that has some land could decide to, take some savings and combine with a loan and buy one of these containers and sell that instead and do a different use with his land. Different farmers can pitch in. We have the same situation with photovoltaics. We have something called community solar. We'll have different homeowners in a neighborhood that maybe in an apartment building. And when you're on the third floor of a 10-story building, you can't have solar panels. So you chip in with your neighbors and you buy solar panels on a field. So maybe a small group of farmers can chip in and they can buy a large vertical farm and share the profits. So there's a lot of different business models available to address this.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any other questions? Yes, they're in the back.
Hello, hi, my name is Alice. I'm a gastronom and currently studying sustainable tourism at the MTM master program. My question is a general one. I was wondering, how do you see this kind of establishment, let's say, solving or partially solving the hunger worldwide regarding the Sustainable Development Goal? Thank you.
So now moving away from Barcelona, Bangkok, and maybe thinking about how this might help defeat hunger in cities. How we're talking about empowering cities, empowering communities to take diet into their hands, to be creative. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I think it takes social mechanism. I will link your questions back to my home front in Bangkok. We have lots of expensive restaurants, and yet we have a lot of food waste there. But food waste doesn't mean that it has waste that go through the waste. We have more like a civic movement that will try to link up the surplus from one point and leads to the shortage is another point. So I normally use this. It's the idea of what we do is Uberization of food system there. You linked up the demand and supply by the help of the startup who see this, the social startup who see that the problem. So to me, it's starting bit by bit. I can't really say that I'm going to solve the world problem, but at least the Bangkok, the metropolitans that I'm living on, there's a movement of this social startup try to do it. Mm-hmm. So when I say food waste, it doesn't mean that it's in the trash, but when you look at the buffet lines, there are a lot of surplus there, and we need to keep our food security and the food safety at the high standard, and that creates a lot of inefficiencies of the food production. So we try to relocate that to the person in needs. Mm-hmm. I hope we answer the questions. I can't see. I'm sorry. I can't hear.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Martina from the city of Amsterdam. But don't you think that if you're doing something with food waste, that you also have to look at the regulations?
Absolutely.
Because I know that a lot of catering companies would like to use the food that isn't eaten during an event, but they can't because of regulations, because they can't assure the quality, etc. Yes. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. We discussed about the regulations as well, but that somehow is a thin line. I'm not going to say that we're going to change the regulations so quickly. The government regulation is right there. Another thing is more like restaurant association standards that they actually put up by themselves, that if you're going to eat a 5-star, this is a standard they're going to be. We'd rather look at this one, which is easier, and try convince them that, hey, there's a way that you can optimize the food safety and also minimize the food waste at the same time. So it's more like restaurant association, hotel associations that we try to work on, to be honest. Yeah. Thank you for your questions.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add something to about how all the work that we're doing here can also be used to help other cities in other countries towards defeating hunger. And I think in that direction, what's really important is that all the solutions that we're finding are really based on trying to see the city as a fertile city, so that the fact that we are producing now food in the cities doesn't mean that we have an additional requirement of all these inputs of resources coming into the city. It's all about trying to be as efficient as we can with the resources that we can. And I think that is going to be applicable and very useful for communities that are dealing with hunger, where they can promote food with the resources that they have right there. So this is certainly going in that direction of reusing, recovering nutrients, and growing food locally this way. Any other question? Let me see. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that now we have 15 minutes and there's going to be coffee outside. So this is, the purpose of this is to get you caffeinated, of course, but also to do some networking and meet each other and ask more questions. And I have also been instructed to ask you to please be here on time for the second session that is at in about 15 minutes. It's on the agenda. I forgot my agenda on my chair. So please check at that and be here on time for the second session. And then we will have a wrap-up summary of this session and the second session. So thank you very much for your time. And thank you all three for coming and showing us your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, welcome. I hope you had your fair share of coffee right now, and that you continue to be as engaged and awake as in our previous session. It is an honor to moderate this panel because, come on, look at our room. It looks like it's specifically designed for this session, which makes it so much more special. And if you want to know, I approached our background, and it's real plants and also autochthonous Mediterranean low water consuming plants. So it just does not get better than this. I am Mons Badia, Senior Congress Specialist of the Smart City Expo World Congress. And today is a particularly special day because out of the 9 editions of our event, this is the first time in which we host a session on food and agriculture specifically. I have no doubt that this topic will have much more trajectory in our event because it's such a fundamental topic for the future of our cities. You know, it's not just about growing food in the city. It's much more than that. It has impact on social aspects. So for example, here we have in Barcelona a network of urban farms that are directed towards the elderly, so they have small portions of land. And that ensures healthy aging, one of the main challenges that we're encountering here in Europe, for example. As the local schools are engaged, it can also foster cross-generational linkages, so that's another wonderful outcome. And through redesigning the agri-food sector in cities, we can actually exceed the limits of the city and change the links between rural and urban areas, which is much needed as urbanization just keeps increasing. And lastly, as you may know, the agri-food sector is one of the major emitters of greenhouse gas emissions, so we can take climate action and tackle the climate crisis through urban food and agriculture. But okay, don't take my word for it and listen to our wonderful speakers. I wanted to tell you before that this session has been co-organized with ICTA, let me just say this properly, the Institute of Environmental Science and Technology of the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and also the Groove Project. So many thanks to them because the session will be wonderful. And we will soon welcome to the stage our speakers, who will be Corinne Valls, the mayor of the city of Romainville, who will let us know about a project that will surprise you and that is really innovative in their own city, but that will for sure have an impact outside its boundaries. We will then have Marie-Angélique Schott, project manager of Astredor for horticulture. She will let us know about the potential of urban rooftops to lower CO2 emissions and also the Groove project. Then we will welcome the presentation from Xavier Gabarrel Duran, professor of chemical engineering in ICTA UAB. He will brief us about the Fertile City project and as well how integration of agriculture in the city can lower the use of resources such as water and also enhance energy savings. And last but not least, David Volk, hope I said it right, yay, leader of greenhouse development of EBF. He will touch upon the socio-economic impacts of urban farming. Before we start, let me tell you there is one presentation in French, so if you would like a translation headset like these ones, please go briefly to the information point. You can get it quickly and come back. And without further ado, let's welcome our speakers and start the session. Yes. Do you want to start? Ah, yeah.
J'y vais.
Yeah, j'y vais.
Et pour lancer le film, là-bas.
Ah, yeah, it's there. Hasta allí, ¿no?
Bien, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Alors, moi, je ne suis ni ingénieur, ni agronome, ni chercheuse. Comme ça a été dit, je suis maire d'une ville de 26 000 habitants qui est en première couronne de Paris, toute proche. Et voilà, je viens vous parler d'agriculture urbaine parce que je porte un projet depuis maintenant une dizaine d'années. C'est la cité maraîchère. Alors, la cité maraîchère, c'est une grande serre urbaine. Oui, mais si je lance le film, ça ira pas. C'est une grande serre urbaine en 2 bâtiments que l'on a choisi d'implanter dans un quartier sensible, puisque ma ville compte 45% d'habitat social. Donc un quartier qui a été complètement rénové, qui s'appelle le quartier Marcel Cachin. Donc ces 2 tours, elles ont été imaginées dans le cadre d'un appel d'un concours d'architecte, et elle a été conçue du sous-sol à la toiture de façon à assurer une production écologique. La disposition, les volumes, les matériaux ont été pensés pour maximiser l'apport de lumière naturelle. Le projet prévoit également une ventilation naturelle, la récupération des eaux de pluie et l'utilisation de compost. On a imaginé également une enveloppe renforcée pour une meilleure isolation du bâtiment, des écrans mobiles et thermiques visant à limiter les déperditions de chaleur en hiver et la surchauffe en été. La gestion et le contrôle de ces installations seront optimisés afin de permettre une régulation fine de l'irrigation. Et bien sûr, on utilise aussi des matériaux biosourcés pour la construction. Cette serre, elle va permettre, alors je dis elle va parce qu'elle en est actuellement au 3e étage, donc la construction va se terminer dans quelques mois. Donc elle va permettre chaque année de produire une dizaine de tonnes de fruits, légumes, plantes aromatiques et champignons sur une surface d'exploitation d'environ 1000 mètres carrés. Malheureusement, ces produits, en tout cas en France c'est comme ça, ne seront pas labellisés bio puisqu'ils ne sont pas en pleine terre, mais ils pousseront dans des bacs et qui seront malgré tout, ces produits seront malgré tout très sains puisqu'ils n'utiliseront aucun pesticide ni engrais chimique de synthèse. Alors j'ai fait un peu là de technique. Mais en fait, finalement, cette cité maraîchère, ce n'est pas simplement un projet d'agriculture, c'est un projet multifonctionnel qui a pour vocation de devenir un véritable service public en France. Je le dis maintenant avec beaucoup d'assurance, mais ça n'a pas été comme ça depuis quelques années. Parce que ce n'est pas aussi simple que ça de transformer des politiques urbaines, et là des politiques urbaines au niveau national. Alors quand je dis un service public, c'est parce que cette cité maraîchère servira avant tout les habitants de la ville et des alentours, et ce de différentes manières. Certains d'entre elles et d'entre eux y travailleront plus ou moins longtemps et s'y formeront. Les enfants y apprendront beaucoup de choses en matière d'agriculture et de maraîchage, ça soit dans le cadre scolaire, soit dans le périscolaire. Ils pourront y amener leurs parents, leurs grands-parents, leurs familles en visite et seront surtout sensibilisés au développement durable. Les salariés du territoire pourront s'y retrouver, y déjeuner, et surtout les habitants du quartier et des environs pourront y acheter des fruits et des légumes de qualité, cultivés hyper localement, donc en circuit très court, et comme je le disais, sans pesticides ni engrais chimiques de synthèse, à un prix raisonnable, parce qu'il est temps, nous semble-t-il, d'en finir avec l'injustice alimentaire qui voudrait que les familles les plus fragiles, les plus démunies, ne puissent consommer que des produits de faible qualité, vides de vitamines et de minéraux. Alors bien sûr, j'espère que les gens viendront des 4 coins de la terre pour voir notre cité maraîchère, s'y intéresser, y échanger les savoirs et finalement peut-être, en tout cas je l'espère, s'en inspirer. Mais la première mission du lieu, comme de l'équipe qui aura la charge de cultiver dans cette cité, sera de servir les habitants au quotidien. Et les objectifs du projet, même si je l'ai dit rapidement, j'espère que vous l'aurez bien compris, sont des objectifs d'intérêt général. C'est l'emploi, l'insertion, l'éducation et avec tout cela, bien sûr, la santé publique. Alors je voudrais vous montrer un petit film court qui vous donnera un peu, qui va vous permettre, si ça se lance, ça devrait vous permettre de visiter, si ça fonctionne, la cité maraîchère. y a un petit problème.
Yeah, I think if you click, you have to click play. Exactly, that's it.
Voilà. Donc voilà à quoi va ressembler le bâtiment. Je vous dis, on en est au 3e étage. On vous situe Romainville par rapport à Paris. Donc nous sommes tout proches. Donc là, ce sont les principes de conception de la cité. Je vous disais, un bâtiment énergétiquement performant, inséré dans un environnement urbain, un bâtiment durable, et donc au croisement de la pratique maraîchère traditionnelle et des technologies, même si on n'utilise pas de technologie particulière. Donc là, on est en plein milieu de la cité. Sur la droite, on voyait la médiathèque, des bâtiments d'habitation et ces 2 tours, donc qui sont d'immenses serres, avec le long du parvis des jardins potagers qui ont une vocation pédagogique et qui permettent de cultiver des produits de saison. Une vente directe sur place des produits, soit à l'extérieur quand le temps le permet, soit au rez-de-chaussée. Ce rez-de-chaussée qui accueille ce qu'on appelait la cantine, qui permet à la fois d'y boire un café ou de manger rapidement le midi à partir de produits cultivés au-dessus, des salles pédagogiques et la possibilité, puisque ce sont des lieux de travail, de regarder de l'extérieur ces plants donc, qui sont dans des bacs empilés avec, vous le voyez, un puits de lumière voilà, qui permet d'avoir un maximum de lumière pour l'ensemble des bacs cultivés. Donc je vous le disais, je me dépêche, je vous le disais, ce bâtiment ne sera terminé que dans quelques mois, mais nous y travaillons depuis déjà longtemps, puisqu'en fait tout était à imaginer, les bacs de culture, les substrats, le modèle écologique, économique, les contenus pédagogiques. Et nous avons travaillé avec toutes sortes d'experts et de spécialistes. Mais je voudrais un instant dire quand même ce qui a été le plus compliqué, ça a été la première étape, et notamment convaincre pour financer, puisque ce bâtiment coûte environ 5 millions d'euros. Et au départ, on ne me prenait vraiment pas au sérieux. Il y a une dizaine d'années, ça faisait sourire ceux à qui je parlais de ce bâtiment. Et finalement, nous avons réussi à mobiliser plus de la moitié de la somme en fonds publics et le reste en fonds privés. Et je pense quand même qu'il y aura encore beaucoup de choses à dire sur cette cité, mais j'espère qu'au travers des questions, je pourrai y répondre, et je vous invite à aller voir sur le site de la ville, puisque nous le traduirons en anglais, ce site, d'ici peu, tout ce qui concerne cette cité maraîchère.
Thank you very much, Corinne. We are now welcoming Marie-Angélique.
Okay. So hello everybody. So today I am here to present a project which the name is GOOF. So what means GOOF? GOOF is greenhouse to reduce CO2 on roof. And what is exactly the project? The project is a European project financed by Interreg Northwest Europe, which binds together 11 partners from 5 countries: France, Belgium, Germany, Spain, and Luxembourg. those partners coming from a diverse sector of activity, going from construction sector, agricultural sectors, environmental sectors, and research sectors. And the idea of the project was to reduce CO2 emission in the building and agricultural sector by an innovative and multidisciplinary approach to combine energy exchange with the building and the food production. So how will we do that into the project? We will implement greenhouse on rooftop of the building to reuse the resources which are not consumed by the building, like heat lost by the building or CO2 emission from the human activity into the building, and put this flow into a greenhouse to produce vegetables and to reuse those flow. By this, we will try to increasing food resilience in urban area by bring back food production into urban area on rooftop. So the project is divided in 3 phases. The first phase was to identify break and opportunity about that kind of solution. The second part is more about development and experimentation with the implementation of 4 pilot units in 4 of the countries of the project. And the last part of the project is to accompany and to coach some new project which will use this idea to put a rooftop on a greenhouse. So the first part was based on most of literature review and visiting existing sites in Europe country. And with that, we identify 2 main breaks. The first one is legislation at a local scale. Most of the time, it's difficult to implement a new agricultural activity into a urban area. And the second break is linked to the building. When you put a greenhouse on a building, you have to respect security aspects, structure aspect. You have to be sure that there is no problem with the people who are in the building and things like that. So this increases a lot the cost of the implementation of the greenhouse on the rooftop. But in front of that, there is huge opportunity at the moment because there is a really involvement of local public authorities in that kind of project which could bring back food production into urban area, and they are able to make evolve the legislation. And there is relocated food production in urban area meets real social and societal expectation of urban people, of urban consumer. So there is great opportunity. So to demonstrate and to experiment those opportunities, they will be implemented. We will implement 4 pilot units, one in Germany, one in Belgium, one in Luxembourg, and one in France. And with those pilots, we will experiment the possibility of produce vegetable by reusing the flow of the building by connecting the building with the greenhouse, and we will demonstrate and calculate how many CO2 emission we will reduce, how much we will reduce the CO2 emission of the building and the greenhouse production. So if we look at what we are now doing, so we are working on the pilot unit, but in the same time we are working to accompany and to coach some project which will try to implement this kind of solution. And for that we have launched an open call from February to June of this year. And at the end of this open call we selected 10 projects from now, and they have been starting. We have been starting to help them and to coach them with all the expertise that we get from the project, and we hold the experts which are in the project to help them to really that in a way that they will be able to realize their project. And at the end of the next year, 4 of those 10 projects will be selected and will be accompanied more deeper to really implement the greenhouse before 2022. And what is really interesting in those 10 selected projects, is that you have a huge diversity in objective and business model of those projects, which is a good representation of what we find in urban agriculture in a more larger scale. So you have some greenhouse which want to be some more research greenhouse to produce data and to produce reference to develop this kind of solution. There is some greenhouse which would like to have really the aim to be educative, to learn children how grows the vegetable, to learn people to how grows the vegetable, and to reconnecting urban consumer to vegetable production and how it goes. And there are some which want to really be social bonding creators, so they will use the greenhouse as a social place to bring a community and to construct a community with the neighborhood, with the firm, which could be into the building, with the people who live around, etc. And the last one is more for productive objectives. So for those greenhouse, the aim is really to sell vegetables production. So what we want for long-term impact with our project is to combine most of people as we can, so legislator, public institution, potential financer, building owner, and I certainly forget people which could be convinced that rooftop greenhouse offer many advantages in a wide range of subjects, like bring back food production into city, reduce CO2 emission, bring people together, recreate social link between people, and yeah, many advantages. So I will end my presentation by saying that the best way to predict the future is to create it. This is from Peter Drucker, and I would just say, no, let's do it, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marie-Angelique. That's a great message to take home. Now, Xavier, the stage is yours.
This is Fertile City is a project with two main partners, the Technical University of Catalonia, UPC, and the Environmental Science and Technology Institute at the Universitat Autònoma of Barcelona. I introduce today the urban agriculture and how the rooftop greenhouse fit in it. I will talk about the crops that we can produce here and the energy saving that the symbiosis between the building and the greenhouse can provide. Also, I will talk about the water flows, as water is the main resource for the food production. So, talking about urban agriculture, we should consider that urban agriculture includes peri-urban farms, also urban soil-based farming, and this is our case, urban rooftop greenhouses or the urban rooftop farmers. Usually in the rooftop, we can have open-air systems, and also we can have greenhouses. In our case study, we are located in the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, 22 kilometers away from here. So we are in the fourth floor of a new building. The building was finished in 2014. And there we have two sections where we have the crops. As you can see in the picture, we use our system as a soilless system, so specifically using perlite. So our concept, in contrast to conventional buildings and greenhouse on rooftop, we talk about the integration of the greenhouse in the whole of the building. So by integration, we are talking about a changes flows from the building to the greenhouse and from the greenhouse to the building. So this is energy, water, air, CO2, and so on. With this symbiotic relationship between flows, we can we can cultivate crops like tomato, lettuce, among others. As you can see here in the picture, we are using two spaces, each one of 122 square meters. Of them, the crop surface is only about 84 square meters. So here we have the crops that we had during the last 5 years, from 2015 until now. You can see that we produce it in this small area, tomatoes in the red color, in different seasons. Tomatoes that we started in January until July, or tomato in autumn winter season that we started in October until February. We produce it in green color, different kinds of lettuce, spinach, among others, and green beans, also in the different seasons. So we can combine our crop, trying to obtain the best condition or an optimal condition for economic and environmental considerations. Here's a picture of the product that we obtain. On the left side, we can see our tomatoes in the greenhouse. And this is talking about the synergies, about the flows. You can see that we are using the flows that are leaving from the building before to be outside. And this is the flows that we use in our greenhouse. Our greenhouse doesn't have any heating, neither cooling system. So we can maintain this optimal or good conditions for the crops without external energy. As you can see here in this picture, we can maintain during the year about 10 Celsius degree difference between outside and inside. These flows, or this synergy between flows, allow us to save about 420 thermic kilowatts per square meters during the year in the greenhouse. And looking also the building, there in the building, also we can save about 152 thermic kilowatts per square meters during the year. So what does it mean? That means that we are saving about 8,600 euros per year with this symbiotic relationship between flows. There are benefits that we can obtain from natural energy flows, and others with the forced energy flows. In red color is for heat, and blue color is for cooling system. And talking about the water, as I said, water is the main resource for food. Our building all the water that is used in our building is from the rainwater. So here in the Barcelona area, you can see on the right a table with the rainfall. So there are years that 2015 that the rainfall was only 300 to almost 330 liters per square meter. This is not too much. So we catch the rainwater from our building, and this rainwater is going to a rainwater tank, and a small one. Other part of the rainwater that we catch is going to a bigger rainwater tank, 100 cubic meters, but also we can catch the rainwater from the closest building. So here we can identify and a new symbiotic relationship between buildings and water flows. And the water used for our crops come from this bigger tank. One of our crop is the tomato. Tomato, as you can see here in the table, in the year 2015, we needed about 64 liters of water per kilo of tomato. Currently, last summer, this year, we are producing the tomato using only, or needed only, about 50 liters of water per kilo of tomato. So, as you can see in this table, currently we are using only rainwater. At the beginning, in 2015, we only could provide about 52% of our water from rainwater. And the last point, I only want to remark that from 82 square meters, we obtain 1,000 or 1.5 tons of tomato. That it's not too much, but it's enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xavier. David, we are ready for your presentation.
Yep. So all right. So I would like to thank a lot my previous talkers because they have laid a nice basis on which I can build now to show something a little bit further, because I'm a physicist. And as a physicist, I normally would talk about energies and energy flows, but since Javier has already told about this, I can go further. But first we have to ask ourselves, what is energy? And therefore I have to call back to a very famous physicist, namely Max Planck. And he said, energy is the capability of a system to make an action. And with that in mind, we can deduce directly that food is actually energy, because we use food to make ourselves an action. So, but in the current industry, in the current food industry, we see the food production chain here. Every single part of this food production chain is based on oil. So food is fossil energy at the moment. So, and this leads to a result which is not wanted actually, because if there is no oil, there is no food. So, how do we fix that? We go from the large industry food sector, and we're using that food sector and breaking it up, because if we want change, substantial change, we need to change something. So a revolutionary approach is to go more into a small scale, very resilient, and very parted way of producing food. The advantages of that system is that you can now produce where you consume, and also breaking up one big system, which is prone to fail, it's much easier to have a lot of small parts which are more resilient to change, to global changes, to a climate crisis, to a fossil fuel crisis, which most probably will come. And therefore, breaking up all the food industry into smaller parts will result in more food security, actually. So this will lead to these changes, basically, that some parts of the food production chain will be lost. But now, we at EBF, we are going a little bit further, because we don't want oil at all. And therefore, we have the EBF approach. We have developed a new way, a greenhouse, a sunlight greenhouse, based on the Chinese Lean-to greenhouse. And the advantages of this greenhouse is that it's modular, flexible, and it's possible to have a year-round production, and it's a plus energy greenhouse. Because if you say food equals energy, then we also have the thing that energy needs to be, as a production of energy needs to be a part of food production. So now what we can say is we not only have food production, but we can also have energy production, and give people the responsibility back to their own hands for the energy and their food, building stable communities. So regarding that, we have a residential building insulation standard for the greenhouse. This is necessary, otherwise we'll need too much energy in the winter to maintain operation. Then this leads to a 90% reduced energy demand to comparable greenhouses. This gives us quite the edge in comparison to the rest of the greenhouse production industry. And then we're using the 94% light transmission ETFE film, partnered with our friends at HEC. Oh, sorry. We are funded there with the Ministry of Energy and Economy in Germany, therefore. So now I want to show you a little bit more what is possible, what is the social possibility for that. And that is, we can see here. That is, first is the socio-cultural aspect. And what we can see here is a rooftop, is a greenhouse, and is, well, let's say it is a concert or somebody is talking. And what we have here is we can lure the people in with our cultural approaches, and then these people will stay for the food that is locally produced. So in the next time they will say, oh, I know there is this greenhouse where I can get my locally produced tomatoes in the winter in Germany, for example, which is not possible without a lot of energy consumption. So we can create such a social impact and build a community, but this goes further, because now this is actually a rendering of the farm we are going to build. And you'll see in the right upper corner, you'll see the greenhouse on the roof. This will be our pilot project we were going to build within the Groove project. So we as EBF are building this pilot project. And the whole farm is going to look like this in hopefully like 3 to 4 years. And we are going to show that how an economically viable horticulture business is able to not only produce a lot of food and energy, as we always say, but also give people a community where they can actually be who they are. And to reach this goal, not only these networking hubs for a lot of, so we plan this to be like a networking structure with a lot more of these in there, and then they get connected within each other. And to reach that point, we start with the educational aspect. And here we have the approach to put in kindergartens and schools and implement the greenhouse itself into their curriculum. Next year in Germany, there will be 2 to 3 projects we're going to be implemented exactly like this. Kindergartens surrounding a greenhouse. We have this aspect of forest kindergartens in Germany where where children can be all day outside in the forest. And this is a combined aspect of having a forest kindergarten and a kindergarten in the city. Combines everything and gives it the opportunity to teach and to learn for the children. So we arrive at the conclusion for that. First, we have the educational aspect, which is really important to implement it into the minds of the small children, to gather all the knowledge at a very small age already. So connect the people to food production, which is a very important thing in these times where people are completely alienated from food production itself. Then we have the art and music, which lures in people who are very interested in expressing themselves. Additionally, we combine this with a horticulture aspect where we combine we get all the people in who want to make money with a greenhouse or with a food production. And in the end, we stop with creating a community, like a really nice community where people can actually be. What we can see here is that as soon as an urban farming project starts, people start to get a meaning in their life where they most probably have lost it before. And this is a really important aspect for mental health, for being people as we used to be, giving back something we've lost. And now I want to show you how a town like this could look like in the future. And this combines each aspect where people can live, they have food production, there's energy production, they can work, and all of this combined gives us the opportunity to implement something which has been lost, and that is food security. Food security, and for people to have their own responsibility for their own life. So give back people their responsibility for their own life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I think that this was a great wrapping up of the sessions that we just found. I just recalled that the word culture comes in its root to the word cultivation. So really, culture is intrinsically linked to us, to citizens, to communities. And I would like now to, we were talking a bit before in our meeting on how both citizens, both communities, and the private sector, also governments, the prejudices that they could have against urban food and agriculture and all the outcomes and opportunities that there are. And for example, Marie-Angelique briefly opened up this question and expressed the intention of the project to reach so many sectors. I would like to ask you, which you think are the prejudices from all these actors of society, and how you would provide a response, or how you would argument it and convince them, so to speak. Would you like to?
Yes, so one of the big problems we see is that these small units of greenhouses, for example, or urban farming, are very complicated to operate economically. Mm-hmm. So this is why we think that a networking structure between creator hubs like really horticulture business and smaller satellites on rooftops, for example, are quite viable, because there we can have experts in the creator hubs which can visit all the satellites. And then every satellite becomes something which does not have to live on its own, but can live off the larger hub. And this gives the opportunity to really use the smallest possible parts, the smallest possible areas, to actually have a really nice horticulture business. And and this gives the opportunity to work this way.
Mm.
I think that part of our work is to show, to demonstrate that it's easy. So to have at home, in our building, in our community area, small gardens, small green gardens. So obviously there are barriers, but also opportunities. Mm-hmm. And looking the cities in Europe, every day, every time, there are more projects from citizens and also from private company that demonstrate that it's possible.
Yeah, I think we have to reinvent how we would produce the vegetables. We don't have to see that like we do at a rural area. So it will be some really other business model, really other way of functioning the greenhouse, the production, and it's essential to rethink about this, because you can't just transfer what is done on the floor and in rural area in urban place. So it's really important to think as community, as to see the other incomes from that kind of production, that just the food production. Even the food production is really important, because you bring back the consumer to what they eat and what is food production. Mm-hmm. So.
Corinne, would you like to?
Oui, moi je pense que la plus grande difficulté aujourd'hui est de faire comprendre à nos gouvernements qu'il n'y a pas une concurrence entre l'agriculture traditionnelle et l'agriculture urbaine, qu'elles peuvent être complètement complémentaires. Et par exemple en France, l'agriculture traditionnelle est très aidée, heureusement d'ailleurs, parce qu'autrement on a déjà pas mal d'agriculteurs qui disparaissent, ce sera encore pire. Mais aujourd'hui, cette espèce de retrait par rapport à l'agriculture urbaine fait qu'on n'a pas été inventé au niveau national le modèle pour permettre que ça vive. Et c'est pour ça que moi je vous parlais tout à l'heure, finalement aujourd'hui j'ose dire que c'est un service public local, mais je suis la seule à le dire pour l'instant. L'État ou mes collègues autour n'en disent pas autant, parce qu'il faut aider. On sait très bien que c'est un système aujourd'hui, d'un point de vue économique, qui ne se suffit pas à lui-même, mais dans le même temps, on voit bien comment d'ailleurs l'urbanisation est de plus en plus forte. D'ailleurs, ça devrait permettre de lutter contre l'étalement urbain. On voit bien comment il y a une volonté de plus en plus grande de manger en circuit court et de manger sain. Et je crois qu'il faut arriver à faire comprendre voilà, au plus haut niveau qu'on a besoin, en complément de ce qui se fait en zone rurale, de ces lieux d'agriculture urbaine. Et je pense qu'il n'y a pas qu'une seule réponse à l'agriculture urbaine. On peut avoir, et depuis ce matin, on montre qu'il y a plusieurs solutions. On peut traduire différemment selon le lieu, selon les opportunités. Et voilà, mais moi je pense que c'est possible parce que je ne sais plus lequel le disait, on voit de plus en plus de projets venir. Donc à un moment, il va bien falloir que certains comprennent ce qui se passe.
Yeah. It's indeed truly exciting to be a part of this so-called revolution. I have a million more questions to ask, but I really want to welcome any question from the audience. Just in case, is there any of you that would like to pop a question to one of our speakers? Please raise your hand if someone would like to ask. Yes, please. If you would like to stand exactly in the microphone, present yourself and let us know. Thanks.
I have a question for the rooftop systems. How many kilograms per square meter do you calculate in the structure of the building? More or less.
Yes.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Louder.
Okay. If you make a greenhouse on a rooftop on an old building, you're going to have a problem about the heavy of the greenhouse, yes. The weight, thank you. And how many kilograms per square meter do you more or less need in your cases?
Yeah, I can answer this question. So in our case, we have a really old building that needs some reinforcement actually, and we are calculating with around 500 to 700 kilograms per square meter, which is necessary because we have the growing systems and we have water. Water is heavy, and we want to prevent anything from happening. So we aim for 500 to 700, so that also some people can be in the greenhouse, which is possible since we are very glad that the building structure we are having is quite nice, so we can add up something. But the problem, I think this is where the question is aimed. If you have a warehouse, for example, or a building like this here, it's not possible to just put stuff on top of it. You're right. So I think it's like 10 to 15% of all warehouses in Europe, we have estimated that, I think so, that are actually able to bear the loads of a greenhouse.
Wonderful,
so
thanks.
One of the reasons because we are using hydroponic system, so soilless system, is this is. So the way that need to support the flow, it's about 100 to 200 kilos per square meter.
Yeah, perfect.
But this is common in rooftop.
Yeah. Great. I'm not sure if you wanted to provide a response, but otherwise, also, is there any other question? Someone else that would like to? Yes, please.
Cette question, c'est pour Madame Corinne. Je voulais savoir si en France, il y a des autres projets similaires, des références que vous avez inspirées pour votre projet, parce que le taille et le niveau, c'est vraiment impressionnant ce que vous bâtissez là. Et bravo. Et je voulais savoir si en France ou ailleurs, il y avait quelque chose à cette échelle-là que vous avez inspiré. Merci.
Non, apparemment, nous sommes les premiers en France à avoir ce type de projet. Alors, on s'est inspiré, bien sûr, on a regardé ce qui se passait partout dans le monde et on avait rencontré un universitaire qui travaillait à New York, sur les toits de New York, mais il y a de nombreuses années, on avait pu échanger avec lui. Mais après, quand je parlais tout à l'heure des gouvernements et de la manière dont on est un peu repoussé, même si on commence à nous regarder un petit peu, c'est parce qu'on a dû tout inventer. On a dû inventer les règles concernant les règles d'urbanisme pour pouvoir réintroduire l'agriculture en ville. On a inventé le modèle économique, alors pas tout seul, hein, je le disais, avec notamment l'entreprise dans laquelle est ma voisine. On a inventé, on a travaillé sur les types de compost. Enfin, on a tout fait de A à Z. Et là, on a lancé un marché public, puisqu'on est régi par des marchés publics. Voilà, c'est très, très réglementé, la manière d'aller chercher un partenaire pour pouvoir cultiver au sein de la cité maraîchère. Voilà, on l'a fait comme on a pu, en essayant de contourner ou d'utiliser les règles, parce qu'on n'est pas censé recruter des gens qui font de l'agriculture au niveau de notre ville. Voilà, mais tout ça, ça a été... c'est un parcours du combattant.
Merci.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So I wish we could stay and talk much more, but I would love to welcome to the stage Gara, the chair of the session, so that she can wrap up the session, provide us with some take-home messages so that we can go home motivated and continue to move forward with this advancement of urban food and agriculture in cities. Welcome, Gara.
Thanks for inviting me. Is this on? Yeah. Thanks for inviting me back on stage. Firstly, I would like to thank everybody and the audience for coming. And I think the message that I wanted to summarize with here today is kind of short, so standing behind this, I feel. The message that I wanted everybody to take home today from what we've heard here is that not only is local food production important in terms of staying away from a fossil fuel-based way of producing food, as David has pointed out. Also, not just in terms of reducing the food import into cities as population in cities starts to grow and we need food security, but also because it provides a wide range of services for urban dwellers that are in need for many reasons, from health, from social cohesion, from all these different other aspects in life. You know, this great project that Corinne has been able to build in there close to Paris is a great example of providing all these services. She's mentioned jobs, she's mentioned training, she's mentioned a living lab for children and young adults to learn. Also ecosystem services provided by some of Karndee. We had talking earlier today about the case in Bangkok, adding biodiversity, having that close by for city dwellers. So all these services for residents, and also to empower the people in cities that they are empowered to build their food, to have their energy, know where that comes from. I think that's really important as a society. And then not only that, but also promoting local food production also gives us opportunities for synergies, as we've seen with the Groove project of CO2 and also energy of the buildings, and also as Xavier Gabarel has shown us with the Fertile City in terms of rainwater harvesting systems, in terms of hydroponics using less fertilizers, less water. And anyway, I just think we've had a great show here of all these different things that are creative and additions to solving this problem. So I wanted to thank you all for coming, and I hope that we keep meeting each other in these great events. Thank you very much.
Thank you.